Welcome. This is False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer at fanside.com. As you can see, I am not joined today by a man who got a better Wonderlic score than Dan Marino or Tua Tagovailoa, but not as good as Ryan Fitzpatrick. He probably got something closer to what Quinn Ewers got, which we don't know. Yeah, Cody Williams, content director, fanside.com. He's dealing with the sickness, sick dogs, thunderstorms. It's just a whole mess up in Los Alamos, and I'll take him at his word for it. So have a still have a fun episode here planned for you today, episode 172 of False Start. It's also, I believe, our 100th on video today. This is included. Yeah, I think 99 was our first on video, and then we've had a bunch of 3 yards in a cloud of punt, playoff Goldilocks. So this is our 100th episode. So again, we'll have a little fun with that towards the end of the show here. But I can only start with one place today. Let's start with where's the money, Lebowski? Yes, Quinn Ewers' agent, Ron Slavin, Slavin, spoke with the media kind of about why his client fell so far down the NFL draft board. This is a guy that many people thought entering last season was a surefire top five pick. As the season progressed, it became very apparent that he was not going to be a first round pick. And then throughout the draft process, everyone's like, oh, he's going to be a third round pick. Well, he went in the seventh round to the Dolphins. He's now going to be competing for a roster spot with the likes of Tua Tagovailoa and Zach Wilson. Man, Miami's really circling the drain. But Ron Slavin put out there that teams wanted to know if Quinn Ewers is going to commit to them on January 1st, which just so happened to be the same day that Texas was playing Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. I saw that game in person. Texas did win that game, but I could kind of sense that Ewers might have been a little distracted. I get it. It's hard to compartmentalize. We're all human. But like the two teams that Slav had mentioned by name were Miami and Notre Dame. And we know that the price point initially for Ewers was going to be somewhere around what 8 million a year. He's making like an eighth of that now for about a million now playing for the Dolphins. Kind of a gross miscalculation of uh, his draft stock and whatnot. But you look at the two teams that his agent mentioned, Miami and Notre Dame. They went out and they got quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Miami ended up getting Carson Beck away from Georgia, whose Georgia career ended with an elbow injury. Initially, he was going to enter the NFL draft. His draft grade was terrible. In hindsight, he probably wouldn't have gotten drafted, which is kind of shocking to me. Kyle McCord still got drafted, and he threw a lot of picks versus Pitt and what have you. But and then in Notre Dame, well, I don't know if they necessarily went in the portal market, but like they got a guy coming up here and CJ Carr. They also forced Steve Angeli to transfer. So maybe I misspoke there. But Miami did get a portal quarterback, and Notre Dame has been doing that quite a lot of late. But these are two teams that we've seen them be more than willing to dip into the transfer portal market. Miami, they've had what Cam Ward, Derek King of yesteryear. Notre Dame's had Sam Hartman, Riley Leonard, and it kind of makes you wonder if Ewers would have been better served going to either place. Let's take this for example. Let's say he went to Miami over Carson Beck. How much better would we feel about the Hurricanes entering this season than we do right now? With Beck, we kind of are of the belief that like, okay, maybe the Hurricanes will play up to their standard. They'll vie for, a spot potentially to make the playoff out of the ACC, kind of like what they were a year ago. But with his health and with what they've lost to the draft and whatnot, there's also a chance that Miami may win a very Georgia 7-5, tongue in cheek there, obviously. And with Notre Dame, you're a team that's probably going to make the playoff again next year. If you win about 10 games every year at Notre Dame, you're probably going to make the playoff just based on brand, who you schedule on your slate. I mean, there are no conference games, so you're going to be playing somebody of note. Yeah, you got the easy win over Navy every year, but you're playing a bunch of teams of note. So like they get a pass there in some capacities. I would say right now with it being a CJ Carr, there's a little more uncertainty there than I would have felt with had it been Steve Angeli. Again, I could be wrong, but if Ewers went there and he replaced Hartman, if he replaced Leonard, who replaced Hartman, then I feel very confident that Notre Dame would pretty much be a lock to make the playoff at this point, but they're not. So I don't know. This is a very interesting thing. Cody threw this my way. Got this on the schedule before I eventually had a punt on the episode today, but I find it incredibly interesting that his agent is doing a bunch of defending his client, backtracking for the fact that it didn't go well for him in the draft, and I'll get on more of that here in a second, but. I don't really there's such a disconnect between what has happened, what happened on the football field in 2024 and what has happened honestly since the end of the Peach Bowl on January 1st till today, Cinco de Mayo. So a lot can happen in about 5 months. It's 4 or 5 months. It's kind of strange. So yeah, where's the money, Lebowski? Apparently, it's still in the pockets of Notre Dame and Miami boosters. We're going to move on to our second topic of the day with some do Host or do Host. One of the things that came out in the interview that Slavin spoke with was he was being told that his client, Quinn Ewers, was too big of a name to be a clipboard holder on an NFL roster. And I kind of go back to this point where I think Cody mentioned this throughout the draft process that like the mid-round quarterback is no more. He said like once we got past Tyler Shuck going to the New Orleans Saints in the second round, the first quarterback off the board after that was Jalen Milroe, and he went to the Seahawks in the latter part of the third round, kind of more as a pro project and a prospect sort of player. Then you kind of go further down the draft. You've got with Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, Riley Leonard, Will Howard, Kyle McCord, and then eventually Quinn Ewers kind of came off the board as well. Other guys too, but I guess Cody's right in the sense that there's not really a quarterback like that anymore. The mid-round quarterback doesn't exist, even though we do have teams now having three rosterable quarterbacks. It's just a very weird dichotomy here in the NFL. It's also like the NFL is doing this to college players. They can only control what they're given, and what they're given a lot of times is crap. But more importantly, their systems in place are crap. So they're taking guys that have 17 career starts like Anthony Richardson and wondering why it didn't work out because they don't know what they're doing. Ewers had to go back to school this past year because he didn't have enough starts. He was injury prone. And you kind of wonder, like, if he would have gone to college for like one more year, maybe he would have shot up there precipitously, like what Bo Nix did. Like Bo Nix was not thought of as a first round quarterback under any reasonable circumstance, and he ended up being that and had a great first year with the Denver Broncos. So we're gonna do Host or do Host. Will Quinn Ewers be too big of a name to be a clipboard holder? Do Host two S's. This is so dumb because. Look, I think he went to the right place for him. He went to the Dolphins. He went to a team where his pathway towards starting is pretty likely. It's not insurmountable. I hate to say it, but Tua Tagovailoa's health is always going to be a question. He's basically one more play from having to medically retire. He may be past that at this point. That's not up to me. I'm not a doctor, but yeah, it's kind of hard to watch and root for the Dolphins, given all that's going on there with him and his mental health and his well-being. After that, you have Zach Wilson, former number two overall pick by the New York Jets out of BYU. Spent last year in Denver. Has really not lived up to what people thought he was coming out of BYU. Couldn't buy that at any point. You know, I bet he is PT Barnum's favorite quarterback of all time because a sucker is born every minute. I can't believe people bought into Zach Wilson, the Fiji mermaid of the Rocky Mountains. But like, if that's all that's ahead of you and you have the arm talent that Quinn Ewers does, and you have the offensive minded coach of Mike McDaniel for a team that, for lack of a better word, like needs to win, like right now. I like that. I like the idea that you can usurp them on the depth chart. You may get a couple of starts this year, and you might play well. I mean, he's got a powerful arm, so did Dan Marino. We'll see what happens, but I kind of wonder what his Wonderlic score is. Obviously, Dan Marino got a 17, Tua got a 13. I'm of the belief if you get anything less than 25, you're kind of an idiot, especially if you play quarterback. I'd like to believe that if I were to have taken this at 23 years old, I would have gotten a 31. I'm not Ryan Fitzpatrick 48, but like, I don't know, I'm good at math. Reading comprehension is not my thing, but like, I wonder what Ewers would have gotten on that thing. We'll never know. But yeah, I don't think he's too big of a name to be a clipboard holder. I just think that like the reason he fell down the draft board is kind of ridiculous to begin with. And I know Cody's not on here to defend himself, but like Brock Purdy shouldn't have been the last pick in 2022. Excuse me. He was too talented at Iowa State. He was a great player there as a sophomore and a junior. His senior year, yeah, might have ticked down a little bit, but there's a reason he's about to make $60 million a year for the 49ers. They're never going to make it back to a Super Bowl with him at quarterback if they're paying him that much money. But for the most part, I'd be very straight with you that there's some guys that we just overthink it throughout the draft process. Like so we did this with Shador Sanders as well. Like everybody's saying, like, oh, I can't believe he went in the fifth round. I think he's better than most people on the Browns quarterback room. I think he's better than Dylan Gabriel, who got drafted ahead of him. There's a pretty good chance I don't think Dylan Gabriel makes the Browns out of camp. I think it's just a bad spot for him. Kenny Pickett is just wasting someone's roster spot, and Joe Flacco is old as dirt. Yes, you still have Deshaun Watson. Honestly, I'd see what Shedeur Sanders is. More importantly, you're paying him next to nothing, and I think you've kind of removed yourself from the Kirk Cousins situation entirely with him possibly being available with the Atlanta Falcons. Again, those two quarterbacks that I think are going to have a lot of success with their teams right away, even though they went in the fifth round, like Short Sanders went to the Browns, and like Quinn Ewers went to the Dolphins there in the seventh round. So as far as like a clipboard holder is concerned, I understand what they're implying. You can't really have a celebrity backup. It's the reason why Tim Tebow's career ended very quickly. It's one of the reasons why Colin Kaepernick was out of the league. Their level of play did not merit the media distraction that came along with them being them. You know, whether that being Tebow, being a major man of faith, being a Heisman Trophy winner, being just a very one of one type of person. Same with Colin Kaepernick with his political activism and everything like that. Again, yeah, it's still early for me in the morning. Trying to remember certain words after being off for a week, it's challenging. Yeah, I'm actually going to write today. Yeah, read my stuff on fanside.com. Throughout the week, I'll be back on here doing what I do best. Write about college football, the NFL, and defending the Atlanta Braves. Also, check out my Atlanta Falcons podcast, Blogging Dirty at Blogging Dirty FS. Yeah, that thing started to really grow. Feeling really good about what the Falcons did in the draft anyway. But I guess really to tie a bow on this is look, we're saying that Ewers is going to be a distraction. I mean, he played last year very well at Texas with the ultimate distraction and the idea of Arch Manning. Like, if anybody is equipped to handle this, it's Quinn Ewers. I mean, just straight up, like the idea of what Arch Manning could be is just all encompassing. It's overwhelming. And like, well, I don't know if he can play. That's why I'm the type of person who's not going to crown him every step of the way. People are like, well, I can't believe he's not a top 10 quarterback in college football right now. I can't believe you don't have him as the number one quarterback coming off the board in 2026. I'm like, look, he's had two career starts, and he played ULM and he played Mississippi State. And every other time, he's kind of been more of a runner than a thrower. And like, and you go back to Ewers, man. Like, since he was basically tied to Miami and Notre Dame, he started two games. He started the Peach Bowl, survived Arizona State overtime, and then he played his former team, the Ohio State Buckeyes, in the Fiesta Bowl. Had a chance to tie it up, got a strip sack versus his former recruiting buddy, Jack Sawyer, and lost to Ohio State and his home state of Texas. But like I think the idea of Quinn Ewers being a distraction as a clipboard holder is absolutely ludicrous. I wouldn't be shocked if he started 4 or 5 games for the Dolphins this year. If let's say for example the Dolphins have like a year from hell, which is certainly within the realm of possibility. Honestly, it's been a quarter of a century of hell. They haven't won a playoff game since what? Since the hanging Chad days of Bush versus Gore back in 2000. It's been a while. But anyway, like I just feel that like if the Dolphins are going to have one of the worst seasons they've had in recent years. Let's say they win like 6 games. Yours is going to win at least two of them, maybe three. I don't trust Zach Wilson at all. And Tua, you can't invest in him. I figure that he and Deshaun Watson are just the two worst contracts in the NFL. It's just who's going to want to sign up for that beyond the Browns and the Dolphins who are currently paying for it. It needs to end for both probably. But I'll just say this. Quinn Ewers going to Miami. This will work out for him. It worked out for Dan Marino. Remember, he was the sixth of six quarterbacks taken in the 1983 NFL draft. I mean, yeah, John Elway went number one to the Colts, ended up playing for the Broncos, won two Super Bowls, best quarterback in that draft class. Jim Kelly didn't want to go to Buffalo, played for the Houston Gamblers, still had a great career with the Buffalo Bills, not as long as he probably thought it'd be. Then Tony Houston took the Patriots to a Super Bowl and got their ass kicked by the '85 Bears. And then Ken O'Brien had a couple Pro Bowl years coming out of Cal Davis with the New York Jets, and then Todd Blackledge tours places, needs food, and calls games next to No Eagle for NBC. So yeah, I don't really subscribe to the idea that Quinn Ewers is going to be a distraction as a clipboard holder. I just think he's going to be a damn good quarterback. And speaking of quarterback, let's move on to that's my quarterback. Who should be the first quarterback taken next spring? Who is in discussion for that? I think the general consensus is Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU is the favorite to be the first quarterback taken next spring. Um, Cody had him going to the New York Jets in his way too early 2026 NFL mock draft. Um, I think the Saints are probably the team that's going to get him, but I think we're both of the belief that Garrett Nussmeier, if he plays up to his potential during his final season at LSU, again, his second as a starter, we're looking at a guy who's going to be going in the top five, one of the first two quarterbacks taken. And the talent's there. I think the high end of what he could be is Matthew Stafford. If he's Justin Herbert, that's fantastic. If he's Sam Darnold with the Vikings, that's great. If he's Blake Bortles with the Jaguars, you messed up. And yeah, that's kind of the prototype that I think he is coming out. My biggest concern is, again, every time I mention Garrett Nussmeier's name tied to being like the first quarterback taken next spring, I always have this snag. I always have this snag in the back of my brain where I'm like, something about this doesn't feel quite right. It's the same thing with the idea for me with Cam Ward going over number one overall. I'm like, that's great. I don't think he's going to be able to overcome the Titans. That's not the issue that I have with Nuss. Again, I think really the big thing for me is it's why Cody loves him so much. He's a total gunslinger. I think he's a little bit too inherently reckless for my taste. It's why I was so turned off by Sam Darnold for so long. This again, this is the prototype of quarterbacks I get the most wrong when evaluating. Like I thought Bortles was going to be good. I thought Bortles had the potential to really provide some level of stability in Jacksonville. I didn't realize he was a mechanical nightmare and Jacksonville was that dysfunctional. He still had some success, but they were just shining moments. Darnold again got eaten alive by the Jets, went to the Panthers, kind of bounced around, found some luck with the Vikings. We'll see what happens with the Seahawks here. But I just kind of figure that when you're an immensely talented player and a guy that really likes to sling it, you're more likely to end up having the next Jameis Winston versus the next Ben Roethlisberger. And I figured, and I hate to say this, I think it's how do I say this as fairly as I can? I feel like you're less inclined to go the distance with that type of quarterback for the long term when they play so recklessly. Like you gotta have a Dan Marino arm. You gotta have something where like you can't get this anywhere else. Because if you're not the A plus, like in terms of physical traits, and you're costing your team's wins on Sundays, that's going to be an issue. But again, we've got a whole season ahead of us to see what Garrett Nussmeier can do for Joe Sloan, playing for Brian Kelly, playing for a Bayou Bengals team that may make the playoffs. But you have to remember this. LSU is one of the biggest high variance teams in the SEC this year. I don't know if they can play like a defense, but what I do know is they're the one team in the league that could go undefeated and win a national championship just as easily as they could go 7-5. So I think conventional wisdom would say yes, Garrett Nussmeier is the first quarterback to be taken. But I'll talk about four others that I think could go in the first round. Cody had them all there, and I'll also finish with Arch Manning before I really get into the second half of the show. Probably QB2 on my board right now. That'd be Cade Klubnik, the Clemson Tigers quarterback. Again, I'm higher on him than Cody is. I think what he showed last year at Clemson was a step in the right direction. It showed me that like when he's got a good coach, a good coordinator, and a good team playing against lesser competition, he can keep the train on the tracks. He strikes me as a guy that I think could go to a team like the Saints. He could go to a team. I don't know, I mean, he went to the same high school as Drew Brees. What if he played for the same team as Drew Brees? Again, two guys that should have played at Texas, but for varying reasons did not. Klubnik is I don't know. There's things about his game that I think just translates very well to the next level. But I also kind of feel like there could be something where like he just doesn't see the field well. Like there's some things like, oh, he could be like the really good version of Derek Carr, or he could be like Kyle McCord not sensing the Indiana pass rush during his 1 year at Ohio State. Again, I think Klubnik's game translates very easily to the NFL, almost to the same degree as Garrett Nussmeier. I think he lacks a lot of the physical traits. But the other thing that I have my concerns with Cade Klubnik is I don't think he's ever going to be a tractor. He's always a trailer. His game is going to be contingent on where he goes. And because like teams picking at the top of the draft are not going to be good, that's going to be an issue. And you got to overcome bad. And I mean, maybe at the best case, he could be Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan's a Hall of Famer, and maybe he's Jared Goff, maybe he's something like that. And maybe Jared Goff's is a good comp for Cade Klubnik in all retrospect. But again, this is a guy that I feel it doesn't necessarily matter how good Clemson is this year, as long as they're winning about 9 games or so, and Klubnik plays fine, then I can get on board with him being a first round pick. I'm not saying I want him to lead my team, but thank God I got Michael Penix Jr. The point is like Klubnik is a quarterback that I feel could potentially go up to number one if Nessmeyer doesn't play well. But for this to happen, you would need Clemson to basically play for a national championship. And right now, I think I have them playing Penn State. Again, I can change my mind on that um, throughout the spring and summer, but like that's kind of where I'm leaning. I'm expecting a lot out of Cade Klubnik. I think he's going to get to New York as a Heisman Trophy finalist. Not saying he's going to win it, but like there's things about his game that I really like, and I think the NFL will agree. QB3 for me, that would be Drew Aller out of Penn State. Again, it's the same sort of thing with Klubnik, where he goes matters. Again, I think Drew Aller is a better version of JJ McCarthy, and I'm the biggest JJ McCarthy hater known to mankind. I think the idea of Drew Aller could work in the NFL. I think that there's a chance that he could be pretty good. I think he could be, I don't know, like he may have like Chad Pennington levels of success here, but there's a chance he may just be Brandon Allen. My big concern about him is he's got to make his players around him better. It's a Justin Herbert quality that drives me insane with that guy. Where like if you're that good, make your receivers better. That's why I love Matt Ryan to death. Matt Ryan was the one quarterback, like no other receiver, ever. Maybe Tony Gonzalez is an exception because he was already a Hall of Famer before he came to Atlanta. But like every other pass catcher, receiver, running back, tight end, you name it, had their best years with Matt Ryan. And when they left him, they got worse. And I don't know. I don't really feel that with Drew Aller at all. I will say though that I do think that he is the type of quarterback where like he could effectively game manage. Like, when Mark Sanchez is really good initially with the New York Jets. Obviously, he's a guy from suburban Cleveland. I think the Browns could be a real shot for him. Maybe he's kind of like Bernie Kosar was back in the day. And the thing about Aller that I will liken it to McCarthy, and this is a thing that I like about McCarthy is I think that they're mentally built for it. I think that like they're mentally tough. They got a lot of composure and everything like that. I think the biggest difference is I think Aller plays within himself, whereas I think McCarthy likes to get a little cute with it, and you can't get cute in the NFL. Man, that's going to be a rude awakening for Dylan Raiola once he makes to an NFL roster as a undrafted free agent after his next year at Nebraska. Very Tyler Bray of him. But yeah, Drew Aller could be number one, but like again, it's got to be like Klubnik, where like you got to take Penn State to a national championship game. You got to win it. You got to be coming in here with every box checked. I mean, that's how Todd Blackledge got to be a first round pick. And I don't know if I don't know if Aller's really got that in him, but there are things about his game that I really like. But at some point, the potential has to become the product, and he's got to produce. So that's why I got him at QB3. At QB4, I've got Lenore Sellers out of South Carolina. Again, he's my pick to win the Heisman. I think South Carolina is going to make the playoff. I think he's going to win the Heisman over Cade Klubnik based on what they do in Palmetto Bowl. My thing is, this is only his redshirt sophomore year. I think he might come back for one more year. It's the same sort of thing with QB5 and Arch Manning, who I'll talk about here in a little bit to finish the segment. Sellers got better as a passer as the season progressed. He was kind of more of a runner initially. Really benefited from playing in a Dowell Loggains offense, but now he's the head coach at App State, and he's no longer. And Sellers is still there. Again, he's the kind of guy. He reminds me of like so much of what Cam Newton was coming out. Again, like Cody was mentioning this in a previous show, like the way that he and I talk glowingly about Sellers is what we thought about when we saw Marcus Lattimore playing for South Carolina when we were in college. Like this is a mega talent here. And for various reasons, I do think that like Sellers will get downgraded a little bit throughout the draft process if he were to enter. But I think his talent, I think what he possesses, like in terms of skills, like someone's going to take a flyer on him. Like it's a safer bet with him than Anthony Richardson. The Colts still took him number four, but I think there's going to be there's more good going his way than what we saw with Jalen Milroe coming out of Alabama. And again, I was a big Jalen Milroe believer, and I think he's going to have a good career, but it's going to be a bit unconventional. Look at it like Cordell Stewart kind of coming out of Colorado with the Steelers. Not saying Milroe is going to play receiver for the Seahawks, but like if Darnold gets hurt, doesn't play well, they'll put Milroe in there and he'll make something happen. But yeah, very bullish on Sellers. I'm not so sure he declares, but if he does, I'm willing to give him a top 10 pick, probably more so than pretty much anybody not named Garrett Nussmeier. QB5 for me, that would be Arizona State's Sam Levitt. Really liked him, watched him in person. He can move around a lot. Very much a fiery competitor. Yes, he doesn't have Cam Scatterbo anymore in the backfield, but like pretty much everybody of note is back on offense for the Sun Devils, which includes offensive coordinator Marcus Arroyo. Kenny Dillingham is still his head coach. Again, I've got Arizona State making the playoff. I think I have them as a runner-up to Iowa State in the Big 12 championship. But again, I have Arizona State as the most likely team to make the playoff out of the Big 12. As is the case with Sellers, I think he probably needs one more year. There may be a chance where the Sun Devils pull back and maybe they go 8-4, but Levitt plays really well. Maybe just some of the close games don't go their way. There's a lot of stuff with him that I like. Again, he kind of reminds me of like the Tony Romo, Joe Burrow type little bit. Deshaun Watson before he ruined his life. There's things about his game with a little more elusive, throws a great ball on the run. There's a little bit of Aaron Rodgers there, but again, not the Aaron Rodgers prototype that Drake May is. So like there's a lot that I like about Levitt, but again, only has one year worth of starts right now. He'll have two, but you have to ask yourself, like, is his like 28 to 30 starts going to be enough for the NFL? It might be, but I think if he has like three more years there, regardless of what happens, he becomes the most popular quarterback to play for ASU since Jake Plummer. So I'm very high on Sam Levitt. Again, I think he's probably going to come back. And then moving on to Arch Manning. Look, Arch Manning cannot turn pro after this year. I don't care what you say. The Mannings are not going to allow this. This is the most calculated family of all time. They love to pander more than Hillary Clinton, and this is false start. There's no way they're going to let Arch Manning turn pro after his redshirt sophomore year. He's had two starts up to this point, ULM and Mississippi State. That's nothing. You're playing against a G5 program that prefers to be called Louisiana Monroe for some reason. It's ULM, baby. And Mississippi State, who was the worst program in the SEC a year ago. Still trying to figure out what to do in the wake of Mike Leach's untimely passing a few years back. Look, Manning may be as good as his grandpa Red, but like you got to be smarter than this. One of the reasons that Archie Manning did not have that as good of an NFL career as his sons Eli and Peyton is because he went to the Saints when they were an expansionary team. Yes, I understand that he's from Mississippi. He played at Ole Miss, but like the Saints really didn't get good until Drew Brees came there. They had a couple of years there in the 90s and early 2000s where they kind of were going, but like not a well-run franchise for the first 40, 50 years of their existence, for lack of a better word. Yeah, 40 years, I would think. Yeah, whatever. The math's not mathing, but if Arch Manning goes pro after this year, like it's it doesn't make sense. Plus, he's probably going to make more in NIL than he would even if he were the number one overall pick. Like just the ability to keep him there in Texas for 2 years, like that's he could do something that no Manning's ever done. Win a Heisman Trophy, win a national championship. He could go number one overall, like his uncle Peyton and Eli did. I don't really know what team that might be, but like they're not gonna be like, yeah, let's turn pro after your 1 year as a starter, and you're gonna go be the quarterback for God, I don't even know what's an awful team next year. What team's gonna be absolutely terrible in the NFL? The quarterback for the Jaguars or something. The Jaguars would be, I think, would be just mediocre. I think they're gonna be the worst team in the NFL. You're the quarterback for the Saints. You really ready for that? I don't think so. So right now, this is how my big board would be. If I had to rank all six, QB1 is LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. QB2 is Cade Klubnik out of Clemson. QB3 is Drew Aller out of Penn State. Lenore Sellers is QB4 out of South Carolina. Sam Levitt is QB5 out of Arizona State. And I don't have Arch Manning on my board. If Arch Manning was on my board, I'd probably have him probably fifth right now behind Lenore Sellers. But like again, like I'm not really going to take the idea of him turning pro seriously until he declares. Why should I? Why should I waste my time? And not going to waste your time anymore. Let's move on to the second half of our show with some talk portal and me. Let's talk about the best of the rest of the spring transfer portal window. With that closing, there's just three commitments I really want to talk about. We got Steve Angeli going to Syracuse, Johntay Cook going to Syracuse, and Jaden Rashada going to Sacramento State. I'm going to start with Jaden Rashada. Man, what a fall from grace this is. This is a guy that was going to be getting so much NIL money from Miami and Florida. Didn't work it out either place. Gets out of his NLI, his national letter of intent with Florida, to go play for his father's alma mater for a year at Arizona State. The Sun Devils went what 3-9. Then last year he goes to Georgia and he was effectively the third stringer behind Carson Beck and Gunnar Stockton. Didn't see the field at all. True red shirt, I get it. Maybe he needed Georgia, maybe Georgia needed him. Just to kind of just, okay, let's just pause. Let's just try to get some things right. But the fact that like nobody in the Power Five was interested, and the fact that like the only team I could hear that he had any sort of ties to out of out of the G5 is Western Kentucky. And if you think you're like too good for like Tyson Helton, I mean like come on, man. Like Sacramento State, I believe that's Michael Vick's team, if I'm not mistaken. So make sure that Michael Vick. Yes. No, Sacramento State is Deshaun Watson. No, Deshaun Jackson. There you go. I'm so confused. Never mind. Sacramento State head coach. He was the Sacramento State head football. Okay, Brennan Marion is Sacramento State. Okay, I could have sworn Vic and Deshaun would have gone there, but I stand corrected here. One's at Delaware State, one's at Norfolk State. So that's kind of what's going on there. But look, Sacramento State's one of the better FCS programs out there. They've got a lot going for them. Obviously, Cam Scattergood played there. That's where Troy Taylor came up from. This is a program that I think eventually will be playing Division One. They kind of want to do it. They're trying to like go to like Division One without necessarily having I'm trying to think of the better word is like an invitation to join a league. I think that like Northern California market, decent sized brand, and they want to do it. More power to them. But like again, it's like the same sort of thing with like okay, Niku Iamaleava playing at UCLA, but Malachi Nelson at UTEP. So I'm not trying to laugh at these kids, but like some of these things like you peaked in high school, like it's starting to happen here in college football. Again, some of these guys just they get exposed too soon. You know, we see this in basketball too, with like, oh, it's all about the shoes. It's all about being so impressionable 14-year-old and getting them to like Nike over Adidas or vice versa. And they don't develop any like life skills. They end up, playing 1 year at college. It wasn't great. They get drafted in like the second round. They kind of bounce around a little bit, and you're like, oh, remember this guy back in the day? I don't know. There's a seedy underbelly here with like with student athletes in high school and in college. But yeah, when I saw that what's his name Jaden Rashada was going to Sacramento State, I'm like, wow, that's very surprising to me. Yeah, so yeah, Jaden Rashada to Sacramento State. Yeah, Sacramento State's Hornets quarterback. Again, like maybe this will work out for him. Maybe he'll transfer again back to a Power Four school at some point. But like, I think he just wants to play. After not playing last year and not playing really good football his first year in college at Arizona State. Again, we'll see what happens here, but that caught me by surprise. And then we got Steve Angeli and Johntay Cook. So Johntay Cook is now going to play at Syracuse. This is a guy who uh, has had some legal issues. Initially he was going to play at Washington, and then he was at Texas. Didn't play very much the last 2 years. Texas just 18 games, a combined 15 receptions for 242 yards and two touchdowns. But he's going to Syracuse to play for Fran Brown. Very excited about that. And Steve Angeli now going to, Richard Jr. is going to be going to Syracuse again. He's only had one career start at this point. He won his bowl game in 2023 for Notre Dame. Um, again, played a little bit last couple of years, but not a lot. I'm really excited about this for Syracuse, and I'll give Fran Brown a lot of credit. This is taking advantage of a tough situation for everybody involved. Look, Syracuse went like what 9-3 last year, 9-4, something like that. 10-3, 9-4, somewhere in that range. They got Kyle McCord to be their quarterback, and this is a guy that everybody in Columbus wanted to run out of town. Like, oh, he can't play. He's a walking stiff. He's a walking trash can, just like his head coach Ryan Day. Uh, then he goes to Syracuse, and outside of that terrible game versus Pitt and that loss to Stanford, I mean, he looked good, man. Like there was a lot of things that Kyle McCord did there playing at Syracuse. That was a lot of fun, and I think Steve Angeli checks that box too. Again, there's a guy from the East Coast playing in the Midwest. Didn't work out. I thought Angeli was going to beat out CJ Carr. Did not work out. But he goes to Syracuse, and you know what? He's a redshirt junior, I think, this year. He got 2 years of eligibility. Um, Syracuse may have the hardest schedule of anybody in the SEC or in the ACC, excuse me. This also includes them playing in Atlanta. They're playing Tennessee in like the Athletic kickoff game without Niku Iamaleava. Tennessee is just gonna, I think it's going with Joey Aguilar as their quarterback, the former UCLA transfer who played the last 2 years at App State. So. I'm looking at this from Syracuse's perspective. You get your starting quarterback, and you get a receiver who may factor in the equation for you in some capacity. Immensely talented. You're playing indoors. You're playing at essentially the Carrier Dome. I think it's JMA Wireless at this point. They may have changed it. Who honestly knows at this point? But like the one thing I wanted to say, and I wanted to talk with Cody about this today, is this does a fantastic job of keeping Syracuse, on the tracks. You had a great year last year. You're thinking like, oh, you win like you only lose 3 or 4 games. To this year, you might be like, oh, you're only going to win 3 or 4 games. You're going to be somewhere in that middle, you know, keep it on the tracks a little bit. It's not so much of a roller coaster. You're building, you got to buy. I'm buying the dip with Syracuse a little bit here. And I think as long as Ellis Robinson's still on the staff, as long as Fran Brown continues to recruit and just be the really good CEO type that this program needs, I'd be in favor of this. I don't know how this affects how I feel about Orange football heading into 2025, but like they could be interesting. They could be top half in the ACC. I don't think that they're going to be as good as the likes of Georgia Tech or Duke, but like I think they could be just as good as I think they could be better than North Carolina State, the Virginia schools. I think they could be good as Boston College or Florida State this year. But like we all know the ACC, it's Clemson at the top, and then we're looking at the likes of Miami, SMU, Louisville, Georgia Tech, kind of vying for that other spot to get to Charlotte. But that third tier, I think, with the additions of Steve Angeli and Johntay Cook, like that might be able to keep the Orange not just not just a lock to probably make a bowl game, but to have a part in saying who gets to Charlotte to face Clemson. So I would be I'm very bullish of that, and I think that's good bowl. And here's some more good bowl. Moving on to our penultimate topic here. Brock Bowers skips Raiders' voluntary offseason program to get his finance degree at Georgia. I love this. Look, just because like I went to Georgia and was briefly a finance major, that's part of it too. But I think this is good. I think more players should do this. And you're like, oh, but you're a professional. You gotta go show up to work for voluntary stuff. Look, Brock Bowers graduated from, or not graduated. He turned pro after 3 years at Georgia. You know, for him to get to Georgia, he had to send recruiting tapes of him running hills in Napa Valley during COVID. He's won 2 national championships. I think he's lost what, like a combined 2 games in his Georgia career. He's the greatest tight end in college football history. Two-time Mackey Award winner. Goes to the Raiders. And I think the thing with people I got to remember about the Raiders is like it's a new regime. It's Pete Carroll coming in. It's John Spytek coming in. It's Geno Smith at quarterback. Yes, I understand that you probably want to get on the same page with Geno, but there's so much going on right now. Like it's not like it's an absolute necessity for him to be there. I think he owes it to himself and his family and his future to get that degree. What you have to remember, man, is these guys who are college athletes, they're people too. But also they don't live a life similar to us. There's things that they have to do. There's certain expectations that get in the way of the true college experience that you and I and your our friends and family all probably had at some capacity. He's there to play football. Obviously, the Terry College of Business is very good. A lot of different degrees you can get there. You can do finance, you can do management like I did, you can do uh, management information systems, you can do econ, you can do risk management, real estate. There's a bunch of other ones in there too. I'm probably missing it as well. But the biggest thing is like so many people that are professional athletes that make this money, they end up losing it, like because they don't know how to manage it. They don't understand finance. Why do you think America's in trillions of dollars of debt? Because people out there don't know how to manage money. We can't deal with the idea of delayed gratification. We need it now. More importantly, we need it yesterday. And I always like it when players go back and get their degrees. It's hard. Like life happens. Like some people who've wanted to finish their degrees don't get that opportunity to do it because, they got to pay bills. They got a family to support. And I think with Brock Bowers, yeah, you've got all that money and you've got financial security for life. So you'd think. I think being able to manage your own money, being able to have some sort of business sense. So you get in that room and you wonder, like, okay, can I budget for this? I'm playing in the NFL. I'm a college football legend. I've always got that in the back of my back pocket. But like maybe I only played in the league for 5 to 10 years. There's no guarantees that Brock Bowers is going to become an all-time player in the NFL. I mean, there's guys that we thought were going to be all-timers that got hurt because this is a collision sport. This is a game. It's a gladiator sport. It's a game of regulated violence. But this is all. I'm always in favor of people, checking the box, even if it doesn't, even if it's not the. First off, like I'm so tired of people like life has to follow a certain pattern. Like life's life. Your life's different than mine, and vice versa. There's no right or wrong way of doing it as long as you're trying every day. Like somebody, whether you're graduating from college at 22 years old or 82 years old, that's all good. I needed an extra semester for me to get through it because I had a slight major change at some point. But I knew it was important for me to stay in Athens to get that degree because the minute I left, there was no chance I was ever going to go back. I hate school. I write. I like to talk to people. I like to talk about sports. I learn what I want to learn. I don't want to learn what everybody else is trying to tell me. And I guess I'll kind of like tie a bow on this with Brock Bowers going back getting his finance degree. I distinctly remember this very early on in my writing career. I remember Devontae Freeman went back and got his degree like during the season or like during like training camp at FSU. Again, another player, very talented, national champion. Like Florida State does not win the national title in 2013 without him. Yes, a lot of people talk about Jameis Winston, but James Wilder Jr., Devontae Freeman, Kelvin Benjamin, those guys were all integral in the Seminoles beating Auburn that year, 1,000%. Um, and then Freeman had a really successful career with the Atlanta Falcons, bounced around a little bit afterwards, but like, I mean, he wasn't in the NFL for that long. I think he played like 2014 to 2020, had a couple of great years, a couple Pro Bowls, played in the Super Bowl, should have had that block, but he's also tiny. Your dream job may not be your dream job forever. You have to prepare yourself for what could potentially come next. And I always thought that was great that Freeman got that even in the season. I think anytime a player goes back, gets their degree, it's a good thing. And more importantly, they're able to do this without having a heaping amount of student loans and debt. I was fortunate that I didn't have to deal with that, but most people do. It's probably the worst thing that's happened to America. Yes, more people have had access to education, but what are they really paying for? They're paying for people to deny them to go to school with a bunch of administrative jobs, which is just complete BS. Almost swore there. But yeah, like if there's a financial incentive out there, so it's not so soul crushing every day of just being a millennial because other people didn't take care of business generations prior to me. Um, if there's an opportunity for you to be like, okay, like my education's paid for, like don't waste it. Like I understand that a lot of these guys who are, playing sports in college, like their degrees are BS. Like a lot of them, like they can't take certain majors. I mean, not everybody is afforded the opportunity to be an architect like Andrew Luck was, or a biology major like Justin Herbert was, or what John Urschel's learning about like gravity or God knows what. A lot of people will take like sociology, housing and consumer economics. That was the one at Georgia. A lot of people do, broadcast journalism, sociology, psychology. Some people do business, but like again, degrees are all different. But I think getting one, having this opportunity, it's always something worth celebrate. So, congratulations on graduating from the greatest school in the world, Brock Bowers. Go Dogs. And moving on to our final topic of the day, we're going to do a new segment. Wish Cody was on here. It's called 100%. First time I met Cody in person back in June 2022 before we all got COVID in Orlando. I didn't realize how frequently he responds to like things in the affirmative with 100%. He's like, 100%. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Maybe he's toned it down a little bit, but that was kind of one of his catchphrases, if you will. Literally like just talking in emojis. That's Cody Williams for you. But this is our 100th episode on video today. So one of the things that I want to do to get out of here is just a few things that I'm 100% sure will happen or not this college football season. Essentially, they're my least favorite thing in the world. Bold predictions. Bold predictions is a stupid phrase. I hate it. There's nothing that bold. But I'm going out here and just saying, oh, maybe like three, half a dozen things that I totally believe will or will not happen during the college football season. First one's first. I'm 100% certain that the Oregon Ducks are not going to win the college football playoff. They never have, and until they make great strides in terms of playing better defense and getting a little more physically and mentally tough, they're not going to do it under Dan Lanning. I'm of the belief that eventually they will, but I don't think that they have the quarterback right now in Dante Moore or Austin Novosad to really do that. Last year was the year that they needed to do it with Dylan Gabriel, and they didn't do it. So yeah, Oregon's not winning the national championship. Sorry, not sorry. Um, Other things that I am 100% certain or 100% is not going to happen. I am 100% certain that James Franklin Penn State is going to win all the games that they're favored in, except and they're going to win all the games they're favored in, and they're going to lose all the games they're not favored in, especially if they're ranked in the top five. So if the number three Nittany Lions are getting 7 points to play the number two Ohio State Buckeyes, they're going to lose that game. This is just par for the course. It's almost become comical. And I think in the advent of the expanded college football playoff, that's not going to matter as much because like Penn State, goes 10-2 and they're the driving machine, the ultimate driving academy. They're going to make the playoff most years because the Big Ten's got a soft tummy. And again, like, I know I dumped on Oregon and Penn State. I'm going to dump on some SEC teams or praise them here in a second, but like those are I would be legitimately shocked. Like I have Penn State as a playoff lock, and I've got Oregon in that next group of like I would be stunned if they didn't make the playoff. But like, Penn State's in the same group with Ohio State, Texas, and Clemson, whereas Oregon's in the same group with Georgia, Notre Dame, Tennessee was there, not anymore. But yeah, like those are still two of the top eight teams in the country without much question. Another one that I'm 100% certain, Arch Manning is not going to declare for the NFL draft after this season. Again, he's only got two starts up to this point. Assuming, okay, let's say Texas win the whole thing and they go 16-0 and he's 18-0 in 2 years as a starter, maybe, but like I don't see that happening. Texas still has to play at Ohio State. They got to play in Athens. A&M is going to be pretty good. Then you got to play in the SEC championship versus someone like Georgia or maybe someone better than Georgia. The point is, I don't see Arch Manning turning pro until he has somewhere closer to 30 career starts under his belt. The Mannings aren't going to like feed him to the wolves simply because they don't have to. Plus, he'll make more money with NIL than turning pro probably would anyway. Like I'd rather get, a guaranteed $7 million than punt on eight to get one like Quinn Ewers did. So again, he'll learn from Quinn Ewers' mistake and he won't turn pro prematurely. Um, I'm also 100% sure that Carson Beck is going to throw the ball a lot for Miami. He's going to throw for a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, and he's also going to throw a lot of picks. Essentially, Miami is 100% going to experience the Carson Beck experience. The good news for the Hurricanes is if he's healthy, that means they're going to win about 9 or 10 games. And if they do that, if they get to 11, I mean, they're going to make the playoff. And he'll get to New York and he'll be a Heisman finalist and maybe he'll get drafted high. Again, he's got a long ways to go with what he did to himself last year throughout the draft process. But you have to remember, Joe Burrow was not projected to go number one entering his final season at LSU. He was a fifth round pick. So yeah, the Carson Beck experience is going to be popping off big time there in Miami. Other things that I'm 100% certain of. The Jordan Hudson, Bill Belichick thing for North Carolina is it's gonna be wild and it's gonna be unpredictable. I don't know if it's gonna what's gonna happen with UNC. All I know is it's gonna be can't watch television. It's gonna be the reality TV of Power Four college football. And then the last one that I've got probably across the board. So I've got some what ACC, SEC. Let's throw a Big 12 one in there. Why not? Let's throw a Big 12 bold prediction in here as well. I am 100% certain that Farmageddon is going to be amazing. Uh, Starting the season off with Iowa State and Kansas State in Dublin. Uh, it's going to be even better than what we saw last year with Georgia Tech and FSU. Going to be better than what Notre Dame and Navy did a couple years ago. We're looking at two teams that are probably going to be fixtures in the top 25 next year. Two of the four or five best teams in the Big 12. Winner of that game might not going to say it's punched its ticket to Arlington, but like be really trending up. I am so excited for that game. And this was episode 172 of Fall Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow my absent-minded, absent co-host Cody Williams at This Hissle 20. You can follow the show at CFB Fall Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a five-star review. That's about how many hours of sleep Cody might have gotten with a dog who hates thunderstorms and sickness. Just, they're just down with the sickness there in Los Alamos. Apparently, apparently. Oh man, he lives a crazy life. We live a crazy life. Coming to you semi-live from Boo Bear's house, and this is False Start.